Star Trek shares Spock's true feelings about Worf, leaving us all in tears. Spock and Worf, two titanic figures in Star Trek lore, both warriors and philosophers in their own way, never shared much screen time in the franchise. One was a product of the original series, a logic-driven Vulcan who became an icon of restraint and intellect. The other, born of the next generation, was a Klingon raised by humans, constantly torn between the culture of his birth and the ideals of the Federation. Yet in a recent emotional twist from Star Trek Legacy Archives, a short story collection released to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the franchise, fans were gifted with an unexpected treasure, Spock's long-hidden reflections on Worf. These reflections, written in a private letter addressed to Jean-Luc Picard but never sent, reveal the true extent of Spock's admiration, respect, and even pain regarding the Klingon who became the face of honor in Starfleet. This revelation is not just poignant, it's utterly devastating in the most beautiful Star Trek way. The letter never meant to be read. The letter, titled simply to Captain Picard, was discovered posthumously among Spock's belongings after his final mission to Romulus. Though short, it reads like a meditation, measured, poetic, and emotionally charged beneath the surface. Starfleet historians originally believed it to be a general reflection on Klingon-Federation relations. Only upon closer examination did the subtext become unmistakable. This was about Worf. Here is an excerpt. Greater than, there is one Klingon I have observed from a distance for many years, Commander Worf, son of Mo. I find myself admiring him more than logic would typically allow. I see in him the path of synthesis, a merging of Klingon fire and Federation idealism. I see the man I never could become. Those final words stun fans. I see the man I never could become? Coming from Spock? It cracked open decades of silence between two characters who, while rarely on screen together, clearly loomed large in each other's worlds. Kindred spirits from different eras. To understand the emotional weight of Spock's words, we must look at what connects these two seemingly opposite figures. Spock, born of Vulcan and human parents, spent his life trying to master the balance between logic and emotion. Worf, a Klingon orphan raised by human adoptive parents, was constantly trying to reconcile his warrior instincts with the values of peace, diplomacy, and compassion. Both were outsiders in their own cultures. Both were symbols of what it meant to live in between. Fans have long speculated that Spock saw a kindred spirit in Worf, even if he never said it aloud. In Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Worf once briefly mentions that he received a personal message from Spock congratulating him on joining Chancellor Garen's High Council, a moment that had seemed small at the time. But this letter reframes it as something deeper. Spock was watching Worf's journey all along. Silently. Respectfully. Perhaps even with something bordering on envy. The moment that changed everything. One of the most striking sections of Spock's letter reflects on a turning point in Worf's life. His decision to sacrifice his position in Starfleet to maintain his Klingon honor during the Klingon Civil War. This moment, chronicled in The Next Generation, showcased Worf's moral clarity, his refusal to allow political expedience to overshadow personal integrity. Spock writes, "Greater than Worf chose the harder path, as I once attempted to do. But where I often failed, he stood firm. There is a strength in him that transcends race, creed, and training. I saw in his actions the resolution of my own inner conflicts, a man whole within himself." This confession reveals something few would have expected, that Spock, often idolized for his control and intellect, saw Worf as more complete than he ever felt. For all Spock's attempts to balance his dual heritage, he viewed Worf, loud, passionate, and true to himself, as someone who succeeded where he had not. A personal regret that broke our hearts. While admiration is one thing, the letter doesn't shy away from something darker, regret. Spock recounts a moment after the Dominion War, when both he and Worf were stationed on Earth for a diplomatic conference. According to the letter, Spock saw Worf alone in the Vulcan meditation garden, a rare moment of peace. He intended to speak to him, to finally bridge the silence between them. He didn't. Greater than, I stood at the edge of the garden, rehearsing words I never said. What does one say to a man who carries the burden of two worlds, when you yourself have carried it and failed? I feared he would see through me. I turned away. It's a small moment, but so Spock, dignified yet devastating. His decision not to approach Worf that day haunts him, and by extension, haunts us. It paints a portrait of Spock not as the stoic figure we often remember, but as someone burdened with mischances and emotional vulnerability. He wanted to tell Worf how much he meant to him. He just couldn't. What Worf thought all along. After the letter was revealed in Universe, Worf was asked to comment during an interview conducted for Starfleet Archives. His response, though characteristically curt, says everything. Greater than he was, a great man. I always believed he disapproved of me. To know otherwise is an honor I cannot describe. That single admission, I always believed he disapproved of me, reframes decades of headcanon for fans. Worf had no idea that Spock saw him as a model of inner peace. Worf, ever the self-doubting warrior, thought his rigid code of honor might have alienated Spock, the diplomat. But the truth was the opposite. Spock didn't disapprove. He was in awe. The legacy of their silent bond. The release of Spock's letter has sent ripples throughout the Star Trek fandom. Fans have taken to social media to share artwork of Spock and Worf side by side, meditating together, sparring, even simply talking, all the things that could have been. More significantly, the revelation has sparked renewed appreciation for both characters' internal journeys. Spock and Worf, each in their own way, are stories of reconciliation, not with external enemies, but with the self. What makes this letter so moving isn't just the emotional honesty, but how it amplifies what Star Trek has always stood for. The idea that peace, understanding, and personal growth are universal goals, even among vastly different beings. A final goodbye. The letter ends with a line that has already become iconic. Greater than, if you speak to Worf, tell him this. There is no dishonor in emotion, only in silence. It's a message that resonates far beyond the show's universe. For Spock, who spent his life wrestling with the idea of emotion as weakness, this was his final truth. And for Worf, who often bottled his emotions behind a gruff exterior, it was a liberation. Tears flowed across fandoms when this was read aloud at the final scene of Legacy Archives, where a holographic projection of Spock voiced by a carefully reconstructed archive of Leonard Nimoy's original performances delivers the letter's conclusion as Worf stands alone in the same Vulcan garden. The camera lingers on Worf's face as a single tear rolls down. Even the stoic Klingon could no longer remain silent. Why it matters. In the grand tapestry of Star Trek, where epic space battles and galactic diplomacy often take center stage, it's these quiet, introspective moments that linger the longest. Spock's words to, and about, Worf remind us that even the most reserved souls carry unspoken affection. That admiration doesn't need to be loud to be real. And that sometimes, the deepest connections are forged in silence. No,